Hello, in this presentation today I'm going to present if it is possible if we can use IMUs to detect different throws and estimate ball velocity in team handball by machine learning. This presentation is performed by Noor University and in collaboration with Prince Auckland University of Technology. To excel in handball, athletes have to train frequently, and as you already know, elite handball players they train once or sometimes 2 times a day. The problem with it is that it can cause cumulative tissue overload, which is a big factor for to overuse injuries like ankle sprains, knee injuries, or in this case, in shoulder injuries. Shoulder injuries are highly prevalent in handball players. 44 to 75% of all the handball players had a history in shoulder pain. And in other study it was reported that 28% of handball players report shoulder pain weekly. In baseball, another similar overhead throw sport, half of the youth pitchers reported shoulder pain during that competition season. And as a result of this, shoulder pain has an impact on the athlete's training activities, performance and daily life. So one of the major risk factors for shoulder injuries is training load. It's undertraining or overtraining. So what you can do to avoid this is lowering the workload. This will help minimizing the likelihood of injury for the athlete. However, it's also detrimental to athletes' conditioning and performance. So a solution is to quantify workload during training and competition to monitor this under and over training. It's possible to use global positioning systems to measure workload. The problem is GPS only measure whole body velocity and acceleration outdoor environment and cannot measure throwing related loads. Indoor we can use a local positioning system, but still it will not measure the throwing related loads, only velocity and acceleration. So another thing is every position has its own workload. You've got 6 different playing positions, which causes different types of throws and passes for each athlete on the different positions, different velocity of the throws, and different numbers of throws and passes during training and in competition. This all adds to the complexity to workload and monitoring. Given the constant need to monitor external workload, there's a need to bridge the gap between time-intensive traditional methods and workload monitoring. A solution is IMUs, in unit measuring units. What is it? It's a reliable and accurate method of monitoring external workloads. It's easy to use during competition across different sports. It's used in cricket, tennis and so on. And by using machine learning, it's also used to identify the number of throws in baseball and delivery in cricket. You see in baseball you can put an IMU in the ball and it can measure the ball speed. In handball, IMUs are used to estimate throwing velocity with an accuracy of 1.3 to 2 meters per second. However, neither of the earlier studies investigate if it was possible to identify different types of throws. They only measured with IMU if it was possible to detect velocity. So then we come to the aim of the current study. Is it possible to investigate if an inertial measurement unit, IMU, and machine learning techniques, if it can be used to detect different types of team handball throws and to predict ball velocity. Here you see an IMU on the hand, on the wrist. So what we use 17 experienced handball players, 10 men and 7 women. They were tested in 2 different testing sessions, and they throw with either a circular or whip-like wind-up from a standing position, a running position and jumping setup. And all throws were made from 7 meters in front of a standard handball goal. A total of 7 to 10 throws were performed for each combination, which were randomized. So a total of 49 to 60 throws in total per subject were measured. So we used an IMU, I measure U, from Auckland, New Zealand. This was attached on the distal dorsal side of the thrown arm, and this IMU consists of a 3-axis accelerometer, and it had the possibility of a low G. It's a low number of gravitations, so 16G range, or it has also the possibility to have a high G, which is a 200G. And it was integrated with a magnetometer and with a 3-axis gyroscope. So here was the setup. They had the throw from 7 meters. We measured the ball velocity also with a radar gun, and we measured also to detect the different throws, that we can identify the different throws with 2 cameras, one from the behind the handball goal and one from the side. So the throwing events were then recognized using a peak detection algorithm with a 1500 degrees per second threshold on the gyroscope I-axis. And the acceleration and rotational properties of each throw were calculated within different window sizes. So a 2 window size, 3, 4 and a 6 window size, centered around this peak rotation event. The features calculated within each window included axis means, variations, power, amplitude, etc. etc. These were calculated for each axis, the X, Y and Z, and the vector magnitude for the high and the low G data separately. So in total, 101 signal features were computed for each throw within each of the 4 windows sizes. So then the modeling and analysis to classify the type of throw, if it was a circular one or a whip-like, and the throw approach type, running, standing or jumping, we have used 4 supervised machine learning models. The first one was a random forest, the second one linear support vector machine, third support vector machine with a polynomial kernel, and the last one was a gradient boosting machine. For estimating the ball velocity, we use the same 4 models, but we fit it with the high G and the low G feature sets. So then the results. The mean peak velocity, ball velocity were measured with a radar gun were as follows: around 20.7 and 21.1 for the standing throw, around 22 and 21 for the running throw, and 21 meters per second for the jump throws. So then when we then want to classify the accuracy for the high G and low G measurement, we found out that the GBM with a 3-second window was the most accurate model for classifying both approach type and throw type. Then here also the GBM model with the high G features performed slightly better for classifying throw type, although not a significant difference. It was only enhanced with 2.4%. You see 0.82 compared to 0.8. Also what was found for the approach type, that the low G features performed better for classifying running. 6.6% balanced accuracy, but not different between the standing and the walking, as you see here. So for predicting ball velocity, you see here a figure where we used the 4 different models with the 2 window, 3, 4 and 6 window seconds, and with the high G and the low G. And there we see that the SVMP model was the most accurate one to predict ball velocity when using a 2-second window. It had only an error of 1.1 meters per second. And then when you want to compare it, the low measurement unit with 16G affected the ball velocity prediction accuracy. It was from 1.1 to 1.31. So it's less accurate than with a high G, but it's only a difference of 0.2 meters per second, which is almost nothing. So other things in the discussion, it was more accurate than the previous studies on throwing velocity prediction in handball. This was probably caused by the higher IMU sampling rate in the present study. We used 1600 Hertz compared to 500 Hertz. And also the error of the peak ball speed between the radar gun and IMUs was 1.1, which could be less when the throws all were directly straight forward in the goal. The problem is sometimes some athletes throw down or throw up, and then the radar gun will only measure the horizontal displacement, so will underestimate it with lower peak velocity. So that could cause a difference in accuracy, which perhaps is not there. So in future studies we should have a small target, for example a half meter by half meter, to gather more accurate radar gun readings for predicting the velocity more accurate. So another thing is the GBM model with a 3-second window was the most accurate model for classifying both approach and throwing type. Lower compared to a comparable study in tennis. This was probably caused by the number of throws. We only tested 962 throws, while they used more than 28,000 shots in tennis. Also, the athletes in the present studies were not elite handball players and did not have a lot of experience with a whip-like wind-up throwing technique, which could cause that sometimes it would fall, the throws were not so different, that sometimes they think they throw with a whip-like while it was not a whip-like but a circular one throw, a wind-up. So also a limitation of this study is that it was in a standardized situation without any opposition or time limits. And problem in handball, the throws can be divided into shots to the goal and passes to each other. So we only looked at the shots to the goal. So in the future studies, we need to use these studies, these methods of the studies to try it out in training and competition settings. And that's what we are doing now. We are trying it now in training sessions where we try to find out shots to the goal and passes, if we can identify them with the same system like we did now. So, conclusion, by using IMUs and machine learning models in a standardized situation may offer a practical and automated method for quantifying throw counts and classifying the throw and approach types adopted by handball players. This may enable players and coaches to monitor intensity and type of throws, and therefore also the workload, to potentially help to prevent injuries and to improve performance. So thank you for your attention.